right, folks, we're going to settle a few things here. We got to get a couple facts on the record here. So you've probably seen the news articles that have come out because Google was recently in Rochester at the Chamber of Commerce meeting to have their nice little dog and pony show for business people in Rochester to try to get them on their side. So let's go over a few things from the news article and get the facts straight here. So a couple things to point out. This is only the second time since residents here in Pine Island found out in September 2025, 10 months ago. It's only the second time that all of the players in the game have actually been in a public place, like together. The first time was just a month ago on June 15th at the Public Utilities Commission open house in Zumbrota regarding docket 26-135, which was an entire docket just for the data center. The substations, the transmission lines, and it left out like that full scope of the project, which is a theme of this project. But this is only the second time that all of the players have been together. That says something. And were they together in front of the actual community where the project is going up? And were they speaking to the actual residents where the project is taking place? No. Also, and just a reminder of the project currently is under hold. They got an injunction. That is, and it's also the very first injunction for a hyperscale data center in the state of Minnesota. That is actually a really big deal, and that's hard to come by because there was a lawsuit again that started in October of 2025 challenging the adequacy of the environmental review, and they wanted to actually begin construction in July. They wanted to already have started that and be breaking ground and be building things already. And yeah, the court said no. May 22nd, the courts came down and granted the injunction, and that is not just dished out by like going up to a gumball machine and putting in a quarter and getting one. You actually have to fuck up. So the fact that they got an injunction, that says something. That means something. So that's where we're coming from. All right, so the misinformation that they claim is getting out there, the number one proponent of the misinformation that they're claiming is actually them. Hence the lawsuit and the injunction, because if they had actually been honest and truthful and transparent with what their project is and entailed and the full scope and the impacts, none of that would have happened to begin with. You see how this works? So if you want to talk misinformation, look no further than your actual project and the proponents of it, the city, the developer, Google, Stantec. Don't blame the residents when you're not upfront with what you're building to begin with. And let's see here. Oh, they talk about all these things about public engagement. They had 2 open houses. Well, congrats. So your first open house was in April of 2025 for your EAW scoping. For your own notes, you had a whopping about 40 people attend. And then your second one was in July of 2025. You had 13 people attend. So at max, you had a grand total of 53 individual people. That's best case scenario, 53 different people attend. And I highly doubt that you had 53 different individual people attending. And remember that with your AUAR, the environmental review that's being challenged in court, you only had 4 public comments. And those 4 public comments were the landowners that signed NDAs. So you're not really doing great on this whole public engagement. And then when the public engagement actually happens, that was the 3rd open house in October. That was demanded by the public, the residents of Pine Island. Me and 4 other moms. 5 moms got that to happen. It was standing room only in that city hall room. 150 people you put in that article. Who did that? Me and 4 moms. 5 moms, residents of the town. That's public engagement. That's what happens when the residents actually know and when they show up and they know what's going on, because we actually care. So if you want to talk about what public engagement looks like and you want to brag about that, you don't get those rights because you're not doing your job. If you had done your job right the first time, you would have had those numbers from the very beginning, because it's very clear now, as the public clearly has a much better understanding of what your project is. People care. We have things to say, and we're going to show up, and we're going to show up in force. And you talk about this whole thing of like higher standards of noise. No, what you were trying to get away with was exemptions to standards of noise that you should have just been following. So don't pitch this as like you're following higher standards. No, you were trying to get away with exemptions to following basic rules, such as like not pulling off testing at like 2 in the morning and, you know, claiming an emergency anytime that you want so that you can just blast noise for 24/7. Like that's what you were trying to get away with, and we said no, we're not going to abide by that. You need to actually stick to normal ordinances. So bullshit, calling it. Let's see, educational sessions done by the city. On what planet? I don't know where you're living, but you're not living in Pine Island and you're not living here because you have not been doing shit. Opposition drowning out supporters. Yeah, because your project is full of shit and people can smell it. Hence, the injunction. Again, that's not a bragging right. Those are hard to come by. You're the first in the state, and there's not very many of them, even nationally, for hyperscale data centers that have happened. So, again, you got an injunction because you fucked up. And people know it. That's why you're not getting the support for the project. People have brains, and when they use them, they realize this isn't all it's cracked up to be. Let's see, you're asking, oh, you didn't mention the NDAs or injunction. Yeah, I kind of already covered that. The injunction isn't a bragging right, and it's gonna make you look bad, which is why you don't wanna mention it when you're talking to business leaders, and you want them to support you and give you money. That doesn't make you look like a sound financial investment, does it? And NDAs, yeah, you keep trying to say that that's standard business practice, but what is being clearly shown by the public is that we're not buying it. No, that actually erodes trust really damn fast, and we're wanting to see things done a little bit differently, especially when it comes out that it's $1 trillion company like Google and you're giving them tax abatement when they clearly don't deserve it. You can't use an NDA to say that you're going to protect Google. Google does not need protecting. They don't need the tax abatements. Like, you know who does? The small businesses on Main Street who didn't get a tax abatement, and you rewrote the business subsidy for Google, specifically for them. You're not bending over backwards for your small town Main Street businesses anywhere. You're not rewriting city code for them. You rewrote it specifically for Google. That's ass backwards. And we're calling you on it because that's not okay. So if I were a small business leader on Main Street, I'd be pretty pissed off, and I'd be asking some tough questions, and I'd be taking you to task on that. Let's see here. Yeah, oh, and you're asking for support from businesses because opposition for the project is drowning out support again. Yeah, your project is not all it's cracked up to be. And people are putting 2 and 2 together, and you need to come to terms with that. And there's some pretty simple things for accountability that can be done, such as doing an EIS, which you should have done from the beginning, which has always been on the table. And if you had actually done that, you could have actually already been done in the whole scope and time from when you started this. And the lawsuit, it actually would have been cheaper and faster to have just done an EIS to begin with, so you could have been transparent with the whole project and done, you know, maybe public engagement and not gotten the pushback. Because when you actually engage in transparency and are upfront with what you're building and what that means and all that it entails, one, you could have avoided a lawsuit, because if it's really that bad, it's going to be stopped. So then you avoid wasting public taxpayer funded resources in a lawsuit that's frivolous. That's not financial sense in any way, shape, or the form. That's not, no. And shared decision making, hello, that's what we're asking for. If you had done that to begin with, and where the public is showing up, me and other community members, we're showing up, we're taking you to task. If you actually engage us effectively, we know what we're doing. We're an asset. So quit demonizing us and treating us otherwise, because we could actually be working together rather than opposition, but you clearly don't want to do that. So I mean, if you're gonna go to the business leaders, hey, Rochester, you got a perfectly curated theatrical performance because they're banking on you not paying attention. And a lot of you probably haven't been paying attention. So, if they're trying to get your support for this project, knowing that you got a theatrical performance because Pine Island's Chamber of Commerce didn't host a Google meeting. Pine Island residents, they're not showing up in front of these residents. Remember, this is only the second time that all of those players in the game have shown up in public, and it's not in front of the community because the community knows what's in front of them, and it smells, they know a cow pie in front of them because, again, farm town. We're not buying it because we know it's full of shit. So they're going to you to ask for your support. And they're doing that either because you're not paying attention and they're banking on you not using your brain. Or they're going to you because you're just as corrupt as they are. So you've got a choice in front of you, Rochester Chamber of Commerce business owners. Do you have a brain, and are you going to use it? And do your due diligence. Because the public is watching. And if you've been paying attention, as you should be, and if you haven't been, this is your wake-up call. You need to be paying attention. The public isn't staying quiet. We're making a lot of noise, actually. And if you haven't been paying attention, and again, you should be, we're winning in this fight. These projects are getting shut down. In Minnesota, these cases, we're suing. We're taking them to court, and we're winning. So pay attention, Rochester Chamber of Commerce businesses, because the public is watching.